You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Modern Musicology. My name is Alan, and Steph is here with me.
Hello, everybody.
And Rob is here with me.
Hey, greetings and salutations.
And we have a very, very special guest with us. This is Mr. Ricky BYRD, singer, songwriter, guitarist, solo artist, former member of the classic lineup of Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, and so much more. He has worked with just about every artist under the sun. And when I say that, I mean, it ranges from Alice Cooper to Mavis Staples. I mean, it is, you run the gamut, my friend. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and welcome to the show.
Thanks. Thank you so much. And that gamut's not easy to run at this age.
You've done a lot. I don't think it's easy for any age.
Yeah, you've done a lot. And I want to that end, I kind of want to just give the listener like an overview. I mean, Alan already sort of started that with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee part, which is just so
That
cool.
was fun.
With, you know, you're known for being the guitarist with Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. But of course, you've recorded and toured with Roger Daltrey and toured with Ian Hunter and Southside Johnny. Like Alan said, you've played with everybody from like Paul McCartney and
Well, that was at the Rock Hall. That was it. Yeah.
I know, that's crazy, and I do want to talk about that. You have been you've coined the term recovery troubadour, and you're a keynote speaker. You've been sober for over 35 years, and you're a certified addiction counselor coach using music and lyrics and your experience basically to inspire change in those struggling with addiction. You have 3 incredible full-length albums, an EP, and a great live album. In 2012, you co-wrote a song with your friend that's now considered a recovery classic, Broken is a Place.
Yeah. Richie.
Yeah. So you recorded a demo of that, you put it up on social media, and the response was overwhelming. And that's basically when you realized how strong the combination of music and recovery could be. So out of that came 2017's Clean Getaway album, then 2021's Sobering Times. And now we have some fantastic new singles, Glamdemic Blues, Alien, and the soon-to-be released Luann, yes, all out on Wicked Cool Records, hopefully leading to another full-length album.
Yeah.
Please welcome Ricky.
Yay. Well,
Yay.
You said it all. You don't need me, so I'll be going.
Peace out, yo.
Yeah, so which one do you want to talk about first?
Well, I want to go back to the beginning and just first see really what sparked your interest in music and talk about when did you start playing guitar? How young were you, and were you singing at that point as well?
Well, like most people in my demographic, I wanted to play rock and roll. I mean, first of all, I grew up in the Bronx, right? And I lived there until I was like 13. Then we moved to Queens, but there was always music going on in the house. Not rock and roll. I mean, for a while after my parents got divorced, we lived with my grandparents. So there was always like Dean Martin, Sinatra, that brand, which I love to this day. I mean, nothing puts a smile on my face like going into a secondhand store and going through the rack and finding like a good Sinatra record,
Yeah.
So there was always that music. And then, of course, every Sunday night at 8:00, if you're, if you're over 40, was the Ed Sullivan Show. And Ed Sullivan, for those that are not of that age, he was a newspaper man, and he had no personality whatsoever. You've seen a million people do his impression. And he started this variety show. They gave him a variety show every Sunday night. It went from I think it was 1947 till the 70s or something. And he would have on, he had a great eye for not necessarily picking talent, but knowing what people would love or would make people watch, right? And he would have on Robert Goulet, in one night, Robert Goulet, he'd have like the cast of a Broadway show. He'd have on a comedian like Charlie Callis. Okay, you could Google that. And
like a serious variety show.
It was a variety show. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And then he'd have like a rock and roll thing. It started with like Elvis. I mean, Elvis, the famous Elvis appearance where they only shot him from the waist up.
Yep.
And which I have a funny story about that too, but remind me later. So I think it was 65. I was 9 years old, and I always had a transistor radio. I love, I always listen to music. And being from New York, we had the greatest radio in New York. AM radio. There wasn't
AM
anything,
radio, yeah.
no such thing as FM yet. And the great stations, WABC, MCA, they played everything on one station, right? So it would go from Trini Lopez to the Kinks to Sinatra, that kind of thing, which is, I told Steven Van Zandt that's what I get out of Underground Garage. It's like he's all over the place, and it's great.
So
because
true.
For me, it gave me a wide range of, soaking up to do of different styles of music. Now, these days, the stations are so separated, even on Sirius XM, except for Van Zandt. You got the Bruce station, you got this station, you got rap, they're all separate stations. So unless you know to go to the different stations, you're going to just be listening to one style of music. But when I was that age, there was all this kind of stuff coming out of one station. And, I'd be sitting on the roof in the Bronx while my mother had, there was a card table. She'd be playing cards with her friends. And I'd be laying on a sheet on the tar, in August, 110 degrees in the Bronx. And, you could see Yankee Stadium from our window, kitchen window and stuff. And I'm still a Yankee fan, obviously.
I know that.
That's another part of me. That should be in my goddamn bio.
I know, it really should.
But one Sunday night, the Beatles came on, the Beatles and the Stones. It was right around the same time. Love the Beatles. You heard them on the radio. It wasn't like today. We didn't know what anybody looked like really, or what their background was. So for us coming out of the other generation where it was tuxedos and Frank and this one and that one, to see the Beatles and the Stones on there. So the Beatles, I fell in love with the Beatles like everybody. And if you want to know which Beatle I was George.
Okay.
Everybody picked a Beatle, right? When you were a kid?
Yeah.
And, I know Beatles or the Stones, but I like them both. But I must say, when I saw the Stones, I was like, ooh, that looks nasty. We can get into some trouble with that music, And they came from more of an R&B blues feel. And there was something that attracted me. And, that was in 65. Like in 69, so I saw the Beatles and the Stones. I asked my mom for a guitar. Her boss, she worked at a handbag company in New York. Her boss, from one of my birthdays, soon after, I can't remember exactly how long, gave her a gift to give to me, which was a no-name acoustic guitar. That was my first guitar. That guitar is in the Rock Hall now. They have that in the.
I was going to ask what is in there, so you answer that question. Okay.
It did get. It was. We were talking before that this where I'm sitting right now was a finished basement that got trashed in Hurricane Sandy. We lost half the house. I got most of my stuff upstairs, but that guitar was down here. So the top of it kind of peeled off a little.
Oh.
But with that said, it gave it a real Pete Townsend after the show vibe, which I thought was really cool. So they have that. They have that there.
Oh man, that's cool.
And I believe everybody can do something well. Now, not everybody finds that thing because life distracts you in a million different ways. Somebody's a great chef. They love cooking, or they could open a car hood and they could take the engine apart and put it back together. I could figure out songs off the radio, not well, but I could, come up with the basic riffs. In fact, at PS 73 in the Bronx on Anderson Avenue, I came in one day with my guitar. It must have been show and tell or something. And I stood in front of the class and I played Happy Together by the Turtles. And I sang it. Once again, don't get any impression that it was great. It was like, I'm sure it was pretty rough. But that song I picked because it was down, 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 down. You know, it was a good riff that I could pick off the radio. So that was my thing, and that was it. From that moment, I was signed, sealed, and delivered. The stamp came in 1969 when I saw the famous Rolling Stones Top of the Pops video of them doing Jumping Jack Flash with face paint and dark lights, and Brian Jones with like, you know, makeup under his eyes and this and Keith. And I just went, oh, I want to do that.
That was it.
Let's go rob banks, you know? I mean, that was like the defining moment for me. It was like, man, this, because if you can't, you know, if you can't wear a white hat, you know, wear a black hat, I guess, you know, and I just love that kind of music to this day.
When you're talking about learning songs from the radio, did you have a way of recording them?
Oh God,
to play back? Because I remember, you know, when I first started listening to radio, you would have to wait until the station would play the song again to see if you got the part right and to, you know, figure out what you did wrong if you didn't get it right.
No, there was nothing like that. I mean, there was a reel to reel in my house because my uncle is still to this day into all kinds of gear. Recording stereo gear, you know, this and that. In fact, he worked at Lafayette Electronics. Anybody know that name? Okay, it was a New York electronics store. So when we moved from the Bronx to Queens, Lafayette was right on Northern Boulevard. I grew up right next to Flushing High School in Flushing, and there was that electronics store. See, and my uncle worked there every year. They would bring back the catalog, and it was all like speakers and receivers, but in the back, was musical instruments and black lights. Remember, I'm talking about the early 70s, and all that kind of jazz. And there's a guitar. There's a picture somewhere on Facebook of me playing my first electric guitar. So I got the amp and the guitar from Lafayette Electronics. It looked like a Gibson 335, but it wasn't. I think it was called a Maestro. I can't remember the name, and I can almost see the name on the headstock. But that was about the time where I got my first little cassette recorder, you know, that we all had, like a little Sony or something. And I remember that because I remember recording the last night at the Fillmore. They had it on. Now we're into FM radio, right? FM radio all of a sudden is a thing. So AM, bye, see you, AM. We're listening to full albums now, and listen to you know, WNEW, you know,
yes,
with all the great Scott Muni, all the great DJs, Scotzo. And they were live from the Fillmore East the last night, and it was so I recorded some of that. So that's when I might have started taking songs off the radio. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. I know I'm all over the place, but I'm a little young for the Fillmore East. I went to like 3 concerts there, and towards the end, and my place was the Academy of Music on 14th Street, which is where I saw everybody. And it was like 2 shows, 8 and 11. You know, I was just a kid, man. I was 14, right. It was 8 and 11, and it was like, here's a bill: Jay Giles, Black Oak, Arkansas, and Humble Pie. You know, one bill.
Oh wow!
You know, and it was always like that. And it became the Palladium, and now it's NYU. They tore the building down and stuff. But that was really my concert venue. You know, besides going to the Garden and stuff like that. And then and my clubs were like Max's Kansas City, which I also went to with Phony Proof, the famous Max's.
Yep, totally.
Nobody's was before Max's. That was a place on Bleecker Street where like you'd see Jimmy Page sitting at the bar. You know, it's like it's a Chinese restaurant now. Wow. I walk by there and I stare in there and go, man.
Like if they only knew.
These egg rolls can talk, I'll tell you. You know.
The memories.
Yeah. Oh, and we used to walk from Nobody's to Max's. When somebody turned me on to Max's. In fact, I just wrote a song called "What a Time We Had." That if this becomes a full-length record, I'm going to end with that. And one of the lines was, you know, I worked working hard at a no future job for the clothes I wore Saturday night. Didn't we all do that? Right?
Yeah.
Because at the time,
Wow.
the place to be was the back room at Max's, and you damn well wanted to look just right, and that was the deal. Because and then the next lines are because every rock and roll band that came through New York City would go there after their show, and where they would go, the girls would follow, and that's why we would go. But dude, that's not just
good.
that's the truth.
Yeah.
There was that was the place where everybody would wind up at Max's in the back room. I mean, I can't tell you how many people, David Bowie and Angela walking in, or, Mott the Hoople, my Mott the Hoople story where I stood around they played the Iris Theater in 73. So you don't even have to ask me questions.
That's okay. We'll just listen to you tell stories. Just
Mott the Hoople played the Iris Theater in 1973, which I went to because I love Mott the Hoople. And Queen opened. It's their first time in New York. And then everybody went to Max's. And I stood with my friends. I'm still friends with a couple of them. We stood around the back table was where they put the rock stars in the back room. See? And I stood around there staring at them, gawking at these guys, in my head going, man, I wonder if I'll ever get to do that. And then 20 years later, I'm like Ian's guitar player.
I know, right? That's like full circle.
Yeah, it's sick. I probably didn't even answer your question.
No, you did.
It doesn't matter. The stories were great.
Freeform. Think of me as Lenny Bruce with a guitar. Just freeform.
So, since you've got stories, can you kind of talk a little bit about how you ended up recording with Daltrey and touring with Ian Hunter?
Okay. So I played with Joan from 81 to 91-ish. I did come back and do a VH1 special later in that decade with her and whoever was playing with her then. And my friend Gerard McMahon, he's a producer, he's an artist. He was friends with Roger. And I met Roger once with Joan when we opened for The Who. But he said, I'm doing Roger's next record. I think you'd be great for it. I pulled in Tommy Price.
Yes.
And
he's a great drummer.
And I pulled in a bass player. I pulled in a bass player that I met at a recovery meeting named Sean Solomon. He's no longer with us. He wound up playing with Ronnie Wood on his solo tour. And we were the basic, the bassist for the band. And there were a couple of other cats in there. Jody, the percussionist that always plays with The Who and with Roger. And he said, do you want to, I think you'd be great in this. He said, me and Roger are going to go to this club in the Village. Why don't you come down and jam with us? So, Roger gets to play with you. I can't remember the name of the club. It wasn't Bleecker Street. It was the street behind Bleecker Street, north.
Great Jones?
I can't remember, and I can't remember the name of it. I could see it. You went downstairs. Little.
Yeah, probably Great
little
Jones.
Club,
or
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we did. There's another picture on my Facebook page somewhere. We did Born on the Bayou. We did a couple of songs, and then we got together and we wrote at Gerard's apartment in the West Village. I co-wrote a couple of songs with Roger and Gerard. Another guy, Dave Katz. And then we went into the studio. We did half of it here, and then we did half of it at Abbey Road, which was a trip, of course. There's pictures of me sitting at the piano. That view, that famous picture when they were in the little room upstairs and you could see into this giant room. Yeah, I got that picture.
Wow.
And then the record came out and we did like a radio tour and a couple of TV shows. We did Letterman, Dennis Miller, Regis and Kathy Lee. And Regis was out that day, and I think it was Dickie Smothers. It was Tommy or Dickie Smothers was there.
Oh man!
And she sang with us. Her singing was okay, but she smelled great. Kathy Lee. And the Letterman thing you could find on YouTube and stuff. And we did remember Rockline? We did Rockline.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I remember that show really well.
We did that. And we played a couple of benefits. We did a thing, Bruce Willis and Demi Moore, when they were married, had a benefit here in New York. Or I don't know if it was maybe it was in LA, but they came to New York and we did this benefit. I think I did it like 2 years in a row. We did that. And the story with that one quickly is we're at Soundcheck and we're doing Behind Blue Eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So I see that Roger's got a wireless mic. and we do behind Blue Eyes. We get to the big loud section, and he's just holding the mic. And after we finished the rehearsal, I said to him, "Excuse me, Roger, aren't you going to swing the mic?" And he says, "You think I should, Ricky?" I said, "Dude, I've been waiting 20 fucking years for this, bro.
That's why I'm here, buddy."
Swing that goddamn mic." And they hooked him up with a wire. They took the wireless mic away. And in the middle of that part, I hear, "Bzz, bzz, bzz," and I look over to my left, or was it the right? I can't remember. And the mic is coming within inches of my face, and he's got a big Roger grin on his face.
Crying.
Yeah, so that was fun. So that was the Roger thing, and we're still friends. Every time it's his birthday, something, and I went to see them a couple of times and went to visit him, and the family went before COVID.
Yeah,
and then Ian just called me and said it was right around when Mick Ronson passed away. Ian would do this Scandinavian tour and then wind up in England every year for a couple of years. And he said, "Would you like to come with me to England and do this tour? And we'll pick up I have a Swedish rhythm section, another guitar player there." And I said, "Well, let me think about it. Yes."
Right.
So that was freaking amazing. And there's a couple of I know I posted it in my videos on Facebook. There's a thing where we're doing the Water Festival, which is a yearly, I don't know if they still have it, big outdoor festival in Stockholm. And it was a weird thing. We got to Stockholm, we rehearsed with the band, and then something happened with the promoter, like the whole tour fell through. So they said, "Well, you could either go home or give us a week, stay in Stockholm and hang out, and we'll put together another tour." So that's what we did. I wound up going to 12-step meetings in Stockholm by myself. It was great. And in fact, there was one time we went to a club, and oh my God, I can't remember the club. I'm in there and I see Robin Zanders all of a sudden in there. And I know Cheap Trick since the band Susan that I was in on RCA.
Yeah.
That's where I met. I met Cheap Trick in Cleveland at Swingo's, the famous hotel. We were all playing in Cleveland. But so we started doing the gigs, and we would go to, the way it was supposed to go was we were supposed to be on a boat, and we would pull up at docks all over Sweden, and there'd be a stage set up. So that fell through. And then we started doing clubs, small theater-y, not theaters, but small places like the Ritz kind of place. And then even some really cool like hotel lobbies where they, in like these towns that looked like it was out of a Disneyland, a Disney movie, with brick on the floor, like when you cobblestone and stuff. And you'd go into the hotel and you'd come back down from your room and it'd be like 800 people packed into this lobby with a little stage. And, for me growing up on Mott the Hoople, you could imagine it was a trip. But I remember we got to England, and remember Mick Ronson had just passed away. And we get to, we played this gig in this really cool place. I can't remember the name, which one it was. A big place, big theater. And everybody had on Mick Ronson hats and, "We miss you, Mick," So I tried to just do my thing. But when I got to All the Young Dudes, and I'm getting the chills now, and we played it the whole, a bunch of times before that, But the live Ian record, Welcome to the Club or something, there's a live Ian record. So Ronson would play it really soft. And then Ian would go louder, and the band would. He did this at this club, so I was already emotional because everybody had the Mick Ronson. And when he said louder, and the band kicked in, I started playing the riff. I literally started crying.
Oh my God!
I had to turn around.
Wow.
It was just like wow. And then I started to thinking about me standing around that table in Max's.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, man, I'm pretty blessed with the cool people I've been able to play with, And
that's so intense.
And my list, all the people that it lists that it says toured with, recorded with, or been blessed to share the stage with, and that's a really long list. And the reason is because I do, or I did. I've done a few since the pandemic slowed down, but a lot of events where I'm in the house band, with me and like Liberty DeVito and Will Lee and Paul Schaefer or Rob Arthur from Frampton's band. And we're backing up Mavis Staples and, Sam Moore and, this and
Hey, it counts.
Hey, it counts. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the list of these people that I got to do 3 songs here, 4 songs there. I mean, dude, played 3 songs with Brian Wilson, sitting right behind Brian Wilson. Like I got a picture of him when I was in soundcheck. Just, do you imagine you're sitting there and you're doing In My Room with Brian Wilson?
No, I can't.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I looked at Jeff Kazee was on that. We looked at each other. We were almost in tears. It was like, wow, this is sick.
Yeah.
And even Mavis Staples, me.
That's, to me, that's like, I love her so much.
So she came at soundcheck. First of all, she gave more at soundcheck than most people do in the real show. Let's just put it. Let's end that right there. She came on stage. She didn't know us, but she came over to each one of us and she went, "Hi, Ricky. Nice to meet you. Great to play." She knew everybody's name. Like she made it a point.
Wow. Very
sweet. And I got to speak with her and her sister, who's I think passed away since then, up after the show. Very spiritual. So we're doing I'll Take You There, and I'm starting. And ladies and gentlemen, now as they're about to introduce Mavis, I'm going, I have no idea what the riff is.
Oh.
I got nothing. Like I could think of Start Me Up. I'm thinking of, I have no idea.
That's not right.
And the harder I thought about it, the tighter it got,
Oh.
Yeah.
And she comes out, that lady, Mavis Staples, she turned around and she gave me the biggest smile. And my fingers just went, dan, 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 dan.
Oh.
Wow. How chilling. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was fabulous, man. And the whole list, I mean, playing, you don't know, what did we do? Soul Man with Sam Moore. And how about 3 songs with goddamn Smokey Robinson for crying out loud?
I know.
Right.
And Bernie Williams was playing second guitar with me, or I was playing second guitar with him. So that was that whole Yankee tie-in as well.
That's why I love going to your website on that photos page, because you've got photos of every one of these things, and I just like try to name who's in the pictures with you.
Yeah, and we've been grabbing pictures. My website's got tons of pictures. I got to get people to go to rickybyrd.com, and you can still get my records on there, by the way. And I always do these like bundle deals and stuff. But I've got all these pictures up there, and I said, maybe I should like title each one, and I'm like, nah, there's got to be like 300 pictures up there, easy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was going through them some more today.
Right.
So I know you talked a little bit about the others, but working with Brian Wilson's kind of frightening itself, because you're standing behind, friggin'
literally
Brian
sitting
Wilson.
like right to his right.
And you talked about Smokey, but what about Stevie Wonder? Because Stevie Wonder is notorious for being really hard on his bands. Just really like he wants a certain thing done a certain way.
But that was at the Rock Hall. That was part of the, people always say, man, you played with Paul McCartney and Ringo. They say, man, you played bass with Paul McCartney and Ringo. And also there's some great pictures. I made a point to go over to Paul. It was my solo. That's another story. Paul Schaefer was the Most Dangerous Band was the band that night. And so at soundcheck, and it was like Gary Clark Jr. and there was Billy Joe Armstrong and there was Joe Walsh was in the amp next to me. And, because they told me that Joan wanted to use her own band a new band. And I said, yeah, that makes sense. But you're going to be in the finale with this one and that one and Paul and Ringo. Okay, that works for me. So soundcheck, Paul said, okay, Billy Joe, you do the first solo. Joe Walsh, you do the second one. Ricky, you do the third one. Gary Clark, whatever it was. And I noticed that nobody was actually being, like going over to him.
Yeah.
And my Bronx brain said, I'm never going to have this chance again.
Right.
So I went, there's these great shots of me. They're on my page there.
They are so
And he's
good.
like smiling at me and watching my hands and stuff. Cause I just went straight to Chuck. I threw all my riffing out the window. It's either I threw it out the window or I just couldn't think of anything because I was so in shock. I played the same riff the whole solo.
He was like, what are you doing? No.
But I was like, Chuck buried him and he seemed to appreciate that,
Yeah.
And I got and he smiled and this is some great smiley pictures. But so there was those guys, but also to my left, on the other side of Joe Walsh, was Stevie Wonder, Patti Smith. Who else was over there? Oh, Peter Wolf from Jay Giles, one of my favorite bands. And maybe somebody else, but I can't remember who else was there. I mean, it was power packed. And you know, forget about that, bro. It's like when I had to give my speech, thank God they had the speeches up on, they didn't want you to look down at the podium, so they put them up on the teleprompter. And I was like, fabulous. Because when I looked down, it was my record collection. It was like, you know, this one, Paul and Ringo and their wives and Joe Walsh was sitting in front of me. And this one, Carol was sitting to the right, you know, with Gary Ryan and this. And, no, Gary was on stage with us, the bass player. Mm-hmm. But there were like all these people I grew up listening to sitting in front of me, and I was just going to start like babbling like Jackie Gleason. Hamana. So luckily I looked forward. I looked straight ahead, you know.
To like the monitor.
To the monitor, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I mean, the only thing that was like, the thing that was really surreal, and I took so much time writing that speech. They kept telling me, the producer was a friend of mine. He kept saying, dude, make it short, man. I don't want to have to cut you. So I wrote like Neil Simon. Like, it was important that I was funny too, to me, you know. And if you listen to it, you can find it on YouTube. I wrote some good lines. But the moment I said, and I grew up watching the Beatles, and I went like this, and I looked down, and there was Ringo and Paul McCartney. And I was like, wow, that was fucking weird.
Oh man, it must have been hard not to like burst into tears almost. It's just,
that's interesting. People ask me that, but no, I wasn't. Mm-hmm. You're so in the moment. You're so in this surreal bubble that no. I get emotional now when I look at it, and I get nervous now. I wasn't nervous that night at all. Even playing with McCartney was the bass player. That was it.
Interesting.
Right. I just made my first visit to the Rock Hall Museum 2 weeks ago or so, and I sat in the theater for a little bit and just watched a string of performances from different induction ceremonies. And I saw that performance, and I was so excited because I was like, that's Ricky Byrd. I'm going to be talking to him in 2 weeks' time.
Well,
so cool. I loved it. It was fantastic.
And you know what? There's a lot of people that, you know, every time the Rock Hall comes around, you know, everybody's arguing on social media about, wow, they don't have it. It's a shame that it's a travesty that this one's it's all crap, you know. Let me tell you something. First of all, it's always people that aren't in it that say that. But besides that, I got involved that house band for a long time, like 7 years in a row. They'd have an event. So in other words, they used to do it 1 year in Cleveland, 1 year in New York, 1 year in Cleveland. Yeah. And it was at the Waldorf for a while too, if I remember correctly. But in Cleveland, they would have a big benefit, you know, for kids to get music into schools. And I was in the house band. I mean, we did Duke of Earl, dude.
That was one of the first songs that I ever knew when I was a kid. My grandma had that album, and I would just play that song over and over and over.
Well, we did it with him. So Gene Chandler. Now, we didn't know this at Soundcheck, but they go, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Duke of Earl, Gene Chandler. And then you hear, oh, we were told to vamp. So we're going, Duke of Earl, Duke. And we're going, okay, where is he? And then all of a sudden we see like a pin spot way at the back. It was the convention center in Cleveland where like the Who played and like the Beatles. And there he is with a cape on with red satin on the inside, walking slowly to the beat. It took him like 10 minutes to get to the
Oh my God.
While we stood there going, Duke.
Finally, you just heard, as
Well, that's what they say, that Gene Chandler never walked anywhere slowly. That's kind of like one of the legendary stories about him, is that he made sure he always had, you know, the perfect sort of clothes to wear.
Yeah. Hey, if you wear a cape, you're okay by me, bro.
Not everybody can wear a cape. Not everybody
can wear a cape. But, and you were talking about Stevie Wonder being rough on bands. You know who turned out to be a sweetheart, but we did it. One of those things at the Rock Hall was Sheila E. And we did a couple of, you know, Prince songs, obviously. she was at rehearsal, man. She was like serious business. You know, like Eddie Money was fun. You know, he was just like a blast. Hey, Ricky, how you doing? Hey. Like he'd lean in the middle of, we'd do one song and at the actual show, and then he'd turn around. He leaned in between me and Jeff Carlisi from 38 Special. He goes, "Can you believe people still like this shit?"
Wow.
He was really funny. He's a great guy though. But Sheila E was like, and I was standing right behind her, and I get to do a solo. And somewhere on YouTube, there's this thing of the piece of song that I can't remember what song it was. It was a Prince song, I believe. But she was serious business at rehearsal. She was like, "Attention, you know, okay, you play this part, and make sure you play that part." And then after the show, I would talk with her, and she was like a doll.
She learned that from Prince, though, because
sure.
he would drill his band like for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So those are two people, but you know, Billy Squire, we played with, you know, there, and we did "Life Is a Highway" with that cat.
Oh yeah,
he came down. That was great.
Yeah, that's a good.
We played with and then we were a lot of really giant artists. We played with. I can't remember anybody right now, but it's on that list.
And this is all like raising money for charity, basically.
Yeah, for the school, to get money into schools. Oh, I know what I was trying to. The point I was making is, so every time we were there every year, I would take a walk through the museum.
Yeah.
And I would get a chill, if not more, like tears, when I would see Sam Cooke's tuxedo, Muddy Waters' guitar.
Yeah.
The shirt Keith Richards wore on blah, blah, blah. You know, like the New York, the famous New York Madison Square Garden show, that little red sparkly vest thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, this is a trip. Elvis's outfits, you know.
Yeah.
Keith Moon's drum set with the famous logo. And, you know, so when people put that shit down, I'm like, yeah, I could see the politics of the actual, that part of it. But the museum, my guitar's in that goddamn museum, and I'm proud of it.
That's right.
Right on.
And they keep switching, you know, for displays. Yeah. I did a recovery thing there a couple of years ago with, I did two years in a row. 1 year I brought Michael DeBar, my pal Michael DeBar. And then 1 year I brought Genya Raven, my other pal, and Kathy Valentine. And Liberty DeVito on drums, right? And my co-producer for all my stuff, Bob Stander, played bass. And they put a display in the main lobby, which was very sweet of them. And it was my goddamn Les Paul, the I Love Rock and Roll guitar, next to, with my picture in the you know, I know I sound like I'm 14, but and the little, you know, explanation, and Chuck Berry's shirt, like one of Chuck Berry's shirts, and a picture of him wearing it live, and I'm like, yeah, see, this isn't right. You made a mistake. And it was very emotional. It was like, wow, man, I never thought I'd see this. That's sick.
I mean, I guess I can see that, but you know, when people you achieve such great, you know, heights of fame too for those years with the Blackhearts and stuff. So I mean, you know, you deserve that credit too. And well,
that's nice. I mean,
it's
still a trip.
Yeah,
I can. Yeah,
you know, just think. Just picture me, the little 9-year-old sitting cross-legged in front of the big box TV in the Bronx, watching Sullivan and seeing the Stones, and going in my brain, sad, down, you know, and then there I am, and all this stuff happened, you know, and it's, you know, I mean, I work hard, and I know what I'm doing, but so much of it is where you know, luck, people who you know, like placement, you know, so all of these things combined. And of course, Carol introduced me to everybody. Like I said at the Rock Hall.
I know, because she was the PR person, right? Like she
well, she also even when she was my girlfriend, she introduced me to Joan, because that's a whole long, we don't have to go into that.
Yeah.
But they had an office up at Lieber Krebs where Carol was the publicist. And she introduced me to Joan, right? Before that, when I was in that band Susan, we were on RCA. She was friends with Tommy Mottola and brought him down to a rehearsal, and then we got signed to his production company, and we had an album out on RCA. So, like I said at the speech at the Rock Hall, if it wasn't for Carol, I'd be selling cologne in Macy's. probably by now.
We love you, Carol.
Excuse me, sir. Would you like to try this scent?
It's the scent of rock and roll.
Yeah.
But
The scent
Ricky,
of desperation is what it is.
when you were in the Blackhearts, were you thinking ahead to like, were you writing your own songs then? And did you ever kind of have that vision of this is going to end one day and then I'm going to go and do my own thing? Like, I want to know how you came to start writing and also co-writing with other people. Cause I know you had the publishing deal.
I had a Sony publishing deal for 3 years back, at that point. I was disappointed about how the thing worked.
The publishing deal thing?
Because you brought up thinking about like the old days where they'd say, the Temptations are upstairs, they need a song. And what
exactly
you'd write a song on the spot, whoever was writing it, and then bring it upstairs to the Temptations. No, what they would do is they would just make a reel with like 40 songs and just throw it against the wall. And it was, for us,
that's kind of why we didn't sign a publishing deal with the Aquanettas. Like we just were like, I don't think that's worth it.
Well, the money was fabulous, but but emotionally, I could see how it works because I recorded up there at their studio, and it was just like, you're faceless, really, and you write songs, like I bleed lyrics like over and over and re-edit and and it's just like, all right, we've got 30 songs that Rod Stewart might like, we'll add yours. It's like, well, wait a minute, is that how it's done now?
Yeah.
But what was the question? Were
you thinking about it at that point when you were with Joan or no? I mean, were you?
I think I started to think of it. I got sober. So I was with Joan in 81. I got sober in 87. So my mind was a little bit more active into thought process of what could come next. And also the touring and the whole, I mean, God bless Joan. Like she's out there, she's going to do this summer tour with Bryan Adams. I couldn't see myself doing this anymore like that. I'm happy with my, you fly me out, I do an event, I come back 2 days later. Fabulous.
Right.
I play with my friends, and I come back and it's over. I can't imagine that touring thing. But when I got sober, I guess I started thinking about like what could be next because I was burnt out. Now I'm sober and, a lot of things that seemed okay back then didn't seem okay when I got sober. And it was just time to go, and I got, there was no hard feelings, at least on my side, me and Joan didn't have an argument or anything. It was just like, okay, 10 years and change.
Good run.
Yeah. I'm going to stay home now for a while. And I got the Sony publishing deal and it's like, I could stay home now and just write songs. And every song that I cut, I got. Sony didn't get me anything.
Interesting.
But, and then it took me forever. Like this stuff that you're hearing, starting with Lifer, which was 2013, and Clean Getaway, Sobering Times, and the stuff like Glamdemic Blues and Alien, and this is what Ricky sounds like. Yep. It took me forever to figure out who I was, because every band I put together in New York sounded like a horrible Stones band with bad songs. I mean, because I didn't know who I was yet. Yeah. And I just kept writing and writing. And then I started, at one point I did my acoustic No Band, No Headaches tour. Maybe that's where I met you, Steph, like the bitter end or something.
I met you at a Bottom Line show. It was actually before that at another show, like another cover show where we all.
Well, that was great. The Bottom Line. That was one of those cool. I mean, I still do these things in New York. Like Joe Hurley calls me to do the Irish Rock.
Yeah.
I did a recovery event at the winery a couple of months ago. That was fabulous.
For people who don't know, there was a series of shows called The Beat Goes On that Ricky and I did together a lot, and I was like the backup singer. It was basically there would be a theme, and we'd all play together.
And it could be 60s music. It could be the Rat Pack. It could be Christmas music.
I did a go-go song one year. Yeah, it could be anything. We did a Phil Spector show. So and then we get cool performers like Phoebe Snow would come and play, and like
oh wow, she was
so many. She was.
Oh wow!
Besides being a great,
I have a great dressing room story about.
Besides being one of the greatest singers ever, she was just funny as hell.
Yeah.
But
so these shows. Sorry, go ahead.
And that's where I met Christine Ullman.
Yep, me too.
Liberty I met at the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, the first one I did. I started playing acoustic. See, And one of the writers that Sonali turned me on to was, the best part about it is they hooked me up with different writers. So I wound up doing acoustic. It got to be, the band thing got to be like too much, because I was always picking the wrong people, and I didn't know what I was doing yet. And I didn't know how to lead a band, and I didn't know who I sounded like or what I sounded like. So I started to play acoustic, and I played the bitter end, and I played here. I did an acoustic tour of Belgium and just I played all over the place. And I find that very easy, because I have a good sense of humor, so I'm easy on the stage. I learned how to do it. In fact, I just did a thing up in Connecticut last month at the Warner Theater, acoustic. Haven't done one in ages. And, I had to relearn my songs. and I really enjoyed it. I was so scared to do it. But once I started playing, I was like, oh, I could do this. Then I started to do stuff at the bitter end where, like, it was me on acoustic, and it was like Simon Kirke on drums from Bad Company, and like Chasm Sultan on bass, or we had Tom Peterson, my friend, from Cheap Trick on bass. So now you see me slipping in a person here and there, a little.
And your live record from
well, we did that,
which I love that.
Thank you. We did that just to get gigs. That was just supposed to be to get gigs.
And it's such a good record. It was such a great show.
Yeah, that was a good, I don't even do any of those songs anymore. You know how it is when you're a songwriter, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, some of them were pretty good, but it's not like I wrote, Bohemian Rhapsody or something.
I would argue that Wide Open is almost my favorite song of yours ever.
Wide Open's my best one, yeah. But I haven't done that in ages. I mean, I have a couple of new ones that are of that vein that are not about, that was a song about being dumped or something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But I have songs like, there's a couple of songs on Lighthouse that I wrote with Richie Super. That's like that kind of, it's like an Otis Redding kind of riff that was on the Sobering Times. Was it on Clean Getaway or Sobering Times? I can't remember. So I have songs for that. When you're doing a set, you can't do 5 of those kind of songs. Maybe I'll pull it out at some point. I put together weird chords. Like I do a lot of drop D stuff. So like I'm gonna like put on Wide Open. I'm gonna go, I have no idea what those chords are because it's all drop D and it's all weird.
Yeah.
So it's like I'll never be able to figure this song out.
I can't figure my own song
but then
out.
that started. Then there was like nothing for a while, and then I was just doing a lot of these events. And then I did the Lifer record when I just put together, and that's a good record. It's a good rock and roll, straight up record. It's nothing fancy. There's no theme. It's just regular rock and roll, straight up. Some cool songs on there. And then I did. I remember that 2012, or it's either 8 or 12. I think it's 12. I was having, if you're in sobriety long enough, you'll have periods where you're hitting a wall. You don't use or anything, but you're just like, you're lost. I called my friend Richie Super in Florida. And he said, I told him, and he said, well, why don't you come down here? We'll do what we do. We'll put it on paper. And we wrote Broken Is a Place. That was the song we wrote.
That was 2012, by the way.
Thank you. I'm awful. With my timeline is like ridiculous. And we wrote that. And like I did a quick recording. I put it online. I started getting messages from people in recovery from around the world.
Wow.
And I went, well, that's interesting. Maybe I could do something with this. And then the other thing that happened is Richie had a song called In the Rooms. And then the rooms is what they call 12-step stuff where you go. And he said, I'm doing an outdoor event in Florida. He's in Fort Lauderdale. Why don't you come down? Broken wasn't even a thought yet. Broken is a place. So it's before that. Maybe that was 2008. He said, why don't you come down and play? You can play I Love Rock and Roll, play some blues. You can play on some of my stuff. Great. So I went down there and, I recover out loud. I mean, I don't talk about the details about, 12-step stuff, but recovery, I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about it if they're struggling or whatever. And I go down and do this gig in a park, and it's all set up like with tables on the sides where they're selling like recovery T-shirts and bracelets and stuff. And we play. And then after the show, numerous people came over to me and said, "Oh man, I grew up on your music or your guitar playing. It's so cool. You're in recovery. You know, I'm in recovery, or my uncle's in recovery, or my father's in recovery." And that was the first time I went, again, you know, makes you go,
Yeah.
you know. And then Broken came. And then once that happened, I had one song. And then I wrote a second song, the third song, fourth song. Now I had like about 6 or 7 songs. And in my travels, because long story short, but me and Richie hooked up with this third person, and we put together this rock band, recovery rock and roll band. And we did events in Florida, you know. And I met some people from treatment facilities. And one of them down there had a satellite one up here in Jersey, actually. And I called them and I said, "What if I came there with my guitar and did a group?" "Yeah, sure." And I came there and I started doing these recovery music groups. And every time I played one, so I had like 6 songs, 7, and the rest was for an hour, and then the rest as I would talk. People would come over to me afterwards and go, "Where could I get this music?" And this went on for months until I finally went, "Guess I better put it down on tape."
Ding, ding,
Yeah.
ding.
Yeah. And that's where Clean Getaway came from.
Wow.
And so now I have Clean Getaway, this record. And what I would do is I would do more of these treatment facilities, but I'd bring a stack of Clean Getaway records and I'd give them to the clinical director and say, "Hey, give them to the clients when they leave here."
That is
Wow.
so generous.
I mean, I sold them for real also, but I you know, and that paid kind of for me
To be
able to give
do
them
that.
away.
Yeah.
But and I still to this day have people that find me on social media and go, "Dude, I still listen to your record. I saw you in treatment like, 10 years ago or something."
Wow.
But then it's time to do a second record. Now I'm still in that mindset, bro. I can't write anything but recovery songs. That's where Sobering Times came from.
Which I love that record so
that's
much.
so nice.
Starlit Night and Poor Me are like, I love them so much.
Yeah. Now, interesting you say that. That's great because I kind of got reliant on co-writing. And I said, I want to start writing by myself. Not that I have anything against co-writing because I wrote a song with Willie Nile,
Yes.
And, I would lean on Richie super a lot. Like, what do you think of this lyric? Can you add it? And so I wrote Starlit Night and Poor Me by myself.
Look, I just picked those too.
Yeah.
But those are really, I love them so much.
And funny enough, I did an event with Rich Pagano on drums.
I love Rich.
At the winery a couple of months ago. It was a recovery event. Steve Earle, Roseanne Cash, Marshall Crenshaw, a bunch of people.
Oh, yeah, like I saw that on Rich's thing.
And
Yeah.
Rich Pagano said to me, "I'd like you to," and the band, we had we had a band also. Steve Conti, Rich Pagano. I can't remember the drummer's name all of a sudden. And he said, "I want you to open the show. So you're going to do I'm 18 by Alice Cooper, but I want you to come out and do the first 2 verses of Starlit Night." And me, in my divine wisdom, said to him, "Hey, what if I do it a cappella?" And I got home and I said, "Why did I say that? What in God's green earth would make me volunteer to sing something a cappella and to open the night?"
Wow.
And dude,
That's so crazy.
I saw Steve Earle before the show, and I just said to him, and Steve's son passed away from fentanyl. And I said to him, and I'm pals with Steve. Like during the Yankee season, we text back and forth. I said, "Dude, I'm shaking right now that I got to go out there and open the show. And what would make me do that?" "Oh, just good. You'll be great, man. Just go ahead, do it. Just do it." And I went out there and I went, and it was people talking, right? "Ladies and gentlemen, Ricky Byrd," right? And I just went, "Let's go down by the river's edge. I'll bring my old guitar." Once I did that, the place went silent.
Because it's such a fucking hook. Like that is the song is so fucking great.
And my brain was going, I was trying to remember the lyrics, first of all.
Yeah.
And not be frightened and sing on key. And it went okay. So
Wow.
kids, if you're listening,
That's what Rob
You're
always
better
says.
than you think you are.
Mm.
You know, and fear is good because fear makes you better. Not
Yes, it does.
Carly Simon fear where you don't want to play live.
Right.
But
Right.
you know, it made me. I mean, I practiced a million times, but still, until I said those first two lines, and the place went silent, and I looked around, and people were like staring at me, and I just went, "Whoa, this is serious." I got their attention. Now what do I do?
Yeah.
And I finished the two verses and the choruses, and then we went down, 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 down. You know, went into Alice Cooper, and it was fabulous. With that said, I'll never volunteer to do it again. Thank you.
Right on. You said something a second ago that was really, really interesting, and you said that you recover out loud.
Right. So people don't die in silence.
That is such an interesting phrasing.
It's not
and
mine.
I want to know what it is that motivates you to be so public. I mean, addiction and recovery is such a personal journey. I want to know what it is that motivates you to recover out loud like you do.
Well, first of all, there's anonymity in the rooms of the 12-step rooms, right? So I'm not talking about 12-step rooms. I mean, I could say that I go to community support group meetings, but I don't delve into the details.
Mm-hmm.
But my recovery is my recovery, and I'll say whatever the hell I want about it. And I just noticed that people, I'll tell you where it first started. The last Blackheart record I played on. Oh my God, again, I can't remember the name of it. But I was wearing a recovery, I still have the same one, thing around my neck. And it turned out on the back cover, you could see it. And I started getting mail. Real mail, It was that long ago, saying, "Wow, man, that's so cool." I'm in recovery, and I just went, "Wow, I didn't think anybody would even notice that." I just started to notice that when I talk about it, like I have my Facebook page and I have my recovery troubadour page, and I keep them separate. And every day I post, not every day, when I remember, I post from two apps that I have, daily meditations or something. Why? Mainly because I forget to read them. I got a stack of books like every good person in recovery that sits on the side of the bed that you never open. But when I get those daily meditations from the app, I read them and then I post them. And then you could see I get so many people liking them and saying, "Man, thank you for posting that. That's a great. I needed to hear that today." So that's just me.
Wow.
There were people that talk about it. There were people that don't. You just. And there are people that have opinions about that. And thankfully, I don't really give a rat's ass what anybody thinks. I just don't talk about the stuff that, I'm not supposed to talk about.
Sure.
For the traditions of 12-step groups.
Yeah, of course. But there's a lot of rock stars who have gone through this process and they will say something like, "I've been sober for 12 years or whatever." But, you do so much more than just that. You are so involved in organizations and you have written whole albums. I think that I think it's so important that you have actually walked the walk. You know what I mean? Like you were setting such an example for other people.
Well, thank you for saying that. I don't want to be recovery boy, but
no, of course.
And let's make it very clear. I've been a complete asshole in recovery. So don't anybody think that you're perfect when you're in recovery. I've made some interesting turns in sobriety. So it's not it's a process. The main thing is you don't pick up a drink or drug or anything, right? And the rest of it is building a new character and becoming. And sometimes I succeed and sometimes I fail. Yeah. But you definitely, I'm definitely a better person than I was, when I was using. But listen, I wasn't mean or anything when I was using. I was selfish with my drugs, but. I don't think.
Well, it's just like self-destruction.
Yeah, I wasn't a mean drunk or anything like that. But I was an animal with it for sure. And I almost died. A couple of times. And I'm lucky I'm here and coming up on 36 years. So I'm grateful for that. And also when I keep my feet in recovery, whether it's the community support group meetings or helping somebody else or talking to somebody else, or they call me, or now I've been working with this organization that's really cool. If anybody's listening that is in recovery or struggling, it's called allsober.com. It's an informational site that I thought was really, they asked me to be an ambassador. Mm-hmm. So what I've been doing so far is getting some of my friends that in the business or in sports that are in recovery that do talk about it on the inspiration page. Because you know what it's like, whether it's right or wrong, people see, oh man, this guy played for this team and he's been sober for, I could do it then, whether that's stupid or not, that's just the way it is. Celebrity nonsense. But there's a whole thing. I just keep getting really cool people to be on the inspiration page. And I agree to work with them because I'm out loud, I get a lot of people contacting me on social media, asking me questions. Like, I live in Sheboygan and I need to get into treatment. Can you help me? Now, I don't know anybody in Sheboygan. So there's a lot of information out there, but it's all over the place. And this website has everything from, getting into treatment, aftercare, community, life after, life in recovery, finding other people.
Like an all-in-one stop
man.
For recovery.
And they're going to have eventually community support group meetings where you could find them, But right now, it's like if you're in Sheboygan, you go on the website and you put in, I don't know why, I picked Sheboygan because Johnny Carson used to say that was a funny word. So I always use that when I'm picking a town. It's always Sheboygan. So you go on the site. You could go to Sheboygan. You can see, oh, this is like 6 miles from my house. This is the insurance they take. This is the clientele. Wow. They there's a young clientele. There's a senior clientele. So I think that's going to be really helpful. I mean, this is an overwhelming problem right now.
Yes.
I mean, there's a million problems going on right now, but that one never goes away, and it's getting worse. And there's so many people that are dying from overdoses and alcoholism. It's probably tied at this point, but I don't know. You got to find something in your life to get back to, like whatever your thing is. Whether it's working with animals, like getting them adopted, or working, or helping be a social worker, or you can't just keep taking. You got to. It's amazing if more people gave back.
Yep.
Those people on Thanksgiving that you see that go volunteer to serve, and instead of having dinner with their families, give them an award. Like that's giving back. And you got to just. Everybody should find whatever their thing is, and do a little. You don't have to.
Yeah, you do what you can. That's what I found.
But just try not to just live your life being, walking aimlessly. And just trying to make your life work, because there's so many people out there that are struggling for all different reasons, mental health and addiction, homelessness, this, that, the other,
Right.
Your newer songs are sort of not exactly all about that, right?
Yes.
I mean, they're more back to, kind of like garagey kind of rock, kind of pop kind of stuff.
I signed a singles deal with Wicked Cool Records,
and that's
Little Steven Van Zant's label. Yeah, the last two records, he said to me, "You should be on Wicked Cool." And what I loved about them is their presence on social media, because everything is social media, right?
Yes, it is.
I mean, there's no radio really for rock and roll. There's classic rock, some college stations. But basically, those days
or Rob's shows.
But basically, those days where, like, if you had a hit single, like Maggie May. Let's say I wrote Maggie May and I did it, and then you'd be on the top 40 station and you'd have a huge hit. It doesn't exist like that anymore. But it's natural progression. It's just like your parents listening to Frank and Dean, and then all of a sudden there was no Frank and Dean. It's just the way it goes. So Underground Garage and Wicked Cool, their presence on social media, I love it, and I love the station.
I love it too.
So I signed with Wicked Cool for this singles thing. And I made a point. I said, okay, I've written enough recovery songs to last me a lifetime. With that said, Luann, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
Now back to Sobering Times. I said to myself, let me try to write one song that maybe I could get. I'll make it a little bit more, what's the word I want to use? Not anonymous, but like, so it's ambiguous.
Yeah, like not exactly about anybody.
It's amazing that I write lyrics.
Are you sure? Are we talking to the right guy?
Yeah. So Stronger, which I wrote with Richie, I Come Back Stronger, is not about, it's just about being knocked down and getting off the mat. And people love that song. And I'm shopping it to movies and TV and stuff like that. But I thought maybe I can get some airplay on this tune, you know. It turns out Stephen played, what was this? Which one did he play? Oh, Together, the song Together, which is a big glam. I guess it was the pre-new stuff I'm doing. Yeah. And Tommy Price is my old pal from the Blackhearts is playing on Together. So, okay, so new songs. Not writing recovery songs. We have a pandemic. I'm sitting here for 3 years in this seat. And I wrote Glamdemic Blues. No title, but I'm playing the chords, you know. And then my stuff always starts with the music. I have never once written a song with here's lyrics and then go backwards. I can't do that. Well, I probably can, but I've never tried it, and I'm scared to do it. So I write the song, you know, dan. And once again, you know, I've come to the conclusion that Ricky Byrd sounds like all the music he grew up loving. That's me.
That makes sense.
And people say
that's not a bad thing.
No, I know, but I finally came to a conclusion I'm not Bob Dylan. I'm not going to create some new rock and roll. I'm going to just mush everything that I grew up on, which is the Faces, the Stones, Otis Redding, Slade, T-Rex, Temptations, this, that, and the other. And that's what I sound like. And I love ear candy. So every time I go in the studio with Bob Stander, he's my co-producer that we've done everything, because we have a language now. I want to do stuff on the records that sound like when I was 14 with the big headphones. I was like, what was that?
Yeah.
What did that guitar just do? What was that? You know, so I make a point to throw those little guys in there, the ear candy. But so Glamdemic Blues, and then I just start going, and I'm frustrated because it's the pandemic and what the fuck, you know. I said, man, I want to go out so bad, you know. And people are going out, but I'm afraid to go out, you know. And it's not really time to go out. And then, you know, people have a gig, and then 2 days later they say, oh man, I have COVID, so if anybody was at the gig, you know, I'm like, Jesus Christ. So I started going, one Saturday night, you know, and they went, interesting. Okay. So one Saturday night. Okay. That's the title. Write it down. And then I start writing the lyrics about being, hey, life, when did you get back in town? And once I got that first line, I went, oh, dude, that is so Sinatra, man. This is going to be good, you know. And that's what it was. It was a conversation with life. Yeah. You know, just give me one Saturday night, you know, can we just.
Yeah.
And the music is completely like, you know, people have said to me, oh, it reminds me of ELO and it reminds me of this. And I love all those things because I grew up listening to all that stuff. I do all the vocals myself, all the backgrounds.
Yes. I was thinking about that when I was listening to this. I'm like, that's got to be you because it sounds like you doing, you know, I could tell that the phrasing and stuff was
well,
you.
Nobody sings backgrounds with me as good as I can.
Right, exactly. Me too.
I mean, for the last two records, Sobering Times and Clean Getaway, I would have Jeff Kazee and Christine Ullman, Marge Raymond, even for a couple of songs. And then for this one, I said, let's just.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, and then when it comes to those parts that you hear, we slow it down, like the old Mott the Hoople trick. And I'd sing down there, and then we'd speed it up again, and it would just sound slightly different. And does anybody really care?
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Right.
We just did that first song recorded. No one cares.
Nobody cares. So that's that. And then I said, okay. So I sent it to Steven. And Dennis Mortensen said, Stephen just got back to me immediately, which is not happening now because he's on the road with Bruce. He's in the rock and roll bubble right now. But Dennis got right back to me and said, Stephen says it's good as it is. Let's put it out. So Glamdemic Blues came out on Wicked Cool. Get a great response. Played the hell out of it, got a great response. And then I said, what if we I talked to Dennis Mortensen, his producer. I said, what if we, and remember, I said, I only want to do singles.
Yes.
No, I'm done with, what's the point? And turns out now I have like 13 tracks. And what,
You've got an album.
And what is that? Yeah. What B-sides? So Glamdemic Blues, he said, we need a B-side. And I said, well, I did Reach Out, I'll Be There by the Four Tops for the last Sobering Times, but I didn't put it on the record because I ran out of space, but also there was an awful commercial for a healthcare system in New York that it was like some kids doing it. And I was like, oh my God, this is probably not the right time to do this.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it was just, and it would not go away. And then my record was coming out, so I left it off. So it was the B-side. And they play, and Underground Grab plays that one too once in a while. Listen, it's not the Four Tops, but, and the riff I did real Jeff Becky,
Mm-hmm.
And I think I did a pretty good job of it for a kid from the Bronx. But next, Alien. I have a dream. I'm very disturbed with the world as it is, as probably most people are. And, when you're in recovery, you really notice everything that's going on. And it's like heartbreaking. And so I had a dream that I was having, ready for this? A sit down, like a mafia sit down with a couple of aliens. She's hysterical. And Van Zandt. Now, I'm not sure if he was Van Zandt or Silvio.
Silvio from The Sopranos.
Yeah, but he was the mediator. And I was trying to buy the human race more time.
Oh my God, Ricky.
And I woke up and I wrote Alien.
That is so fantastic.
And if you listen to the words, is there anybody really out there taking stock of who we are? It must blow your mind since the start of time. We've not come very far, because there are those that still fear anyone that might look different than you do. This beautiful world has an ugly side, thinly veiled, you see right through. And I'm like, yeah, this is good lyrics.
Yeah.
This is the first time I ever touched on
multi-layered lyrics.
Touched on the drain that we are circling as I speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's just, dude, the chorus, the chords are just Dion, really. It's doo-wop. It's those chords, four chords. It's just doo-wop, right? And I'm going, Alien, what must you think of us for all we've done to this here Mother Earth, It's just, that's all it is. It's just that feel, But it's got a lot of, like in the second verse, you hear me going, la, 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 just like real ELO-y kind of stuff. I just love playing in the studio, man. You want to see me happy, you see me in the studio. Like for the first 4 hours, like 5 and 6, I'm just like, hit record. Did you get that guitar line? No, man, I wasn't in record. You're kidding. I can't do that again.
Do we think Luann is coming out soon, or do we know?
Luann is coming out June 23rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's not a recovery song. I mean, that's the one. Yeah, I swore I wouldn't write another one. But if you hear it, it's Luann. If anybody could, you can. And it's about it's sort of like giving encouragement to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I wrote Miss Ann, and I called up Dennis Mortensen. I said, hey, I got this really cool rock and roll tune for the next one called Miss Ann. He said, oh, you're doing a Little Richard song? And I went, what? He said, yeah, Little Richard had a single called Miss Ann. Fuck.
Damn it.
And then I had to think of a name that fit that.
Of course.
And then
because it's already in your head and you already have the lyrics.
I thought Luann was a good rock and roll name. It sounds like a song out of like, Austin, Texas, 1966, Luann, done by like Skeeter Jones or something. I think I just made that up. And then then they're just coming, and
so you're just going to do singles. You're not going to have a full length, do you think, or
what do you think?
Who knows? I think you're going to have a full length.
Okay, so
so there's your
There
I
it
don't know.
is.
It's like the thing with Wicked Cool is that they're so far in advance. Like if I gave them all the songs right this minute, it wouldn't come out until next fall or something.
Oh, you mean they've got such a lineup going on, right?
But I could put these singles out every 6-8 weeks. So we'll just keep doing it and then at some point after like 4 or 5 singles, I'll say to Stephen, here's the beginnings of some more songs. What do you think? You want to do this whole thing? But meanwhile, I'm being played all the time and I'm just, I'm going in the studio like once or twice a week. I just did an instrument. I've never written an instrumental before, and I just did an instrumental a tribute to Jeff Beck, who was my favorite lead guitar player.
Oh, wow. That's phenomenal.
Called Rhapsody in Blues. How's that for a title?
Yeah.
Wow. And I do a little taste of my favorite. Rhapsody in Blue is my favorite melody of all time. When it gets to it makes me cry. Like I'm a big Gershwin fan. So I did a teen in the deep fade. I go, just a little bit of Rhapsody in Blue.
Little tribute.
Wow.
Yeah. So that'll come out at some point. And I just got a bunch of stuff, and I'm happy. Everything sounds great to me. That's what's great. Like if you listen to the stuff, it sounds great on the radio. It sounds great. You know what's wonderful about Underground Garage? And if you follow my Facebook page, you see I've been putting the bird sandwich. It's like Otis Redding, Alien, and then the Dolly Rots. And I'm like, wow, how cool is this?
I love the Dolly Rots.
They're playing. There's some great music on there right this minute. Great singles. Yeah,
I listen to Underground Garage all the time.
Yeah, me too. It's in my phone.
That's one of the places where I discover most of my new music, and I really love it. I want you to talk about where people can find all this information about you, all your music. If they have questions about recovery, where would you send them?
Well, you can always go on my social. I got a Facebook page. I got a Twitter page. I got 2 Facebook pages. I got Recovery Troubadour and just my straight up rock and roll page. I'm always posting fun pictures and stuff. I've got a Twitter page and an Instagram page, and you find me on any of those. Just say hi, introduce yourself, and if you got anything to say, if you got a question or anything, I'll try to answer it as quickly as possible. I think the main thing is, if I could leave you with anything, I'm so glad we had this time. No, that's not right.
Oh, lovely. You didn't do the ear.
No, I was thinking about it. Too cliched, my friend.
Right.
But just try to be kind to each other, man. Like we really need extra kindness right this minute. It's just we're just crazy. It's like I'm starting to think there's something in the water. So just be kind, and if you could take a minute, in your 24 hours, try to take an hour and do something for somebody else. Whatever it is. Right. There's so many people that could use your help, and if you have any friends that are depressed or make sure you contact them and make sure they're okay. Right. Watch out for everybody. Watch out for your friends. Who am I?
Oh, that's so sweet, Ricky.
Wait, I'm ruining my reputation.
Well, Ricky, thank you so much for
Thanks
chatting
for,
with us tonight.
having me.
Man, this has been so enjoyable.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't. When I do an interview, Carol says, "Dude, you talk. You just keep talking." It's like there was they asked George Burns, "How do you do your thing with Gracie Allen?" And how do you do your bits with Gracie Allen? And he said, "I just ask her about her brother George, and she talks for 25 minutes." And that's the same thing with me, You just asked me about my brother George or whatever.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's great. I mean, that's why you're a great interview. So and people will have, want to hear your stories and stuff. So
Okay, good.
thank you.
So that was fun. And now I'm going to go upstairs and eat pastry.
All right.
Auf
And
Wiedersehen.
I'll write you. Thank you so
All
much,
right.
Farewell.
Ricky.
Take care.
Take
Mwah.
care.
Thanks, man.
Bye.
Tune in to the Con Guys Show. Con as in Comic-Con. We are Hollywood filmmakers and superfans who cover all the news of the con universe, including the films, the TV shows, the streaming series, the experiences, and the events that fuel your fandom. If you'd find it at Comic-Con, then you'll find it here. Now in our 7th year, the Con Guys Show is a proud member of the ESO network.
Oh, man.
Oh man, that was so fun.
Wow.
God, that guy is just full of stories and tells them well.
And that's like the
Yes.
tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, well, that's why we have to get him back
Mm-hmm.
so we can hear more of them. All right, we're going to be back next week. We are chatting with Tommy Stinson, so make sure you're here for that. Before we go, Stephanie, where can people find more about you?
You can find me on Bandcamp under my name. You can find me on Facebook at Stephanie Seymour Music, on Instagram at there_r_birds, and therearebirds.com. I have a website. And you can also find me on all the streaming platforms everywhere, like Spotify and stuff like that.
All right, Rob, hit us.
So, in a terrifying world where people are buying the new Dave Matthews album, you can find a respite from that on 2 places. One, I have a show called Antics on Louder Than War Radio. It's on every Monday from 6 to 8 Greenwich time, or 1 to 3 Eastern, or 12 to 2 Central, or actually anytime on the Louder Than War Mixcloud page. You can just do it whenever. If you hear hyenas in your yard and you can't sleep, you can turn it on then, right? So you've got that going on. Then Wednesday nights from 7 to 9 Central, I'm on Juxtaposition on KDHX. That show and all of the shows we do are streaming for 2 weeks. You can hear those at kdhx.org. People got a lot of stuff going on Wednesdays. So a lot of people listen later. You can do that if you want, or not. You can just, talk to yourself. You can also find me on the Weekend Justice podcast as well, and a few other writing places as well.
All right. And I have a little website called cosmiccreative.com, KOZMIC creative.com. And that's a place where you can find some books that I've written and published by other people. And if you need some reading material, that's a good place to go. And if you're a Whovian, I've got a Doctor Who podcast called Doctor Who A to Z. And if you are a Star Trek fan, I have a podcast called Earth Station Trek. So if you need something to listen to while you're feeding your pet ocelot, that's a great suggestion. So we will be back next week with Tommy Stinson. See you then. Take care. Have a great week.
It doesn't cost a lot to feed your ocelot.
Wow. Jeez.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping for the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.